The Andy Poland Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
This stat put up on Twitter yesterday by my friend Al Galdi. The Commanders have had 8 standalone games this year. That means Monday Night Football. That means Sunday Night Football. That means like yesterday, 1 o'clock on Christmas Day. In those 8 games, which they earned by having an incredible season last year with an incredible player in Jaden Daniels, they're 0-8. And their point differential in those 8 games is minus 77, meaning they have lost those 8 games by almost double digits. And yesterday, they actually acquitted themselves fairly well after falling behind 21-3. But once again, they came up short, and should they lose in Philadelphia a week from Sunday, they will, for the second time in 3 years, finish with a record of 4-13. The one that they had under Ron Rivera, that was understandable. That was a dead season walking from the beginning with Sam Howell playing quarterback. This one, this one is really hard to explain other than the injuries. But, other teams overcome injuries, and this team did not. It was an older team last year that managed to stay healthy. It's an older team this year that couldn't stay healthy at all. And even with the younger players, particularly Jaden Daniels, who played only 7 games, and Terry McLaurin, who was in and out of the lineup. And that's just not a formula for success. So here they are, looking for a rebuild for next year. The only encouraging thing, at least for me, is that Jaden Daniels is on the roster. And you hope that he has a season similar to the one he had last year instead of the one this year. But the great fear, of course, is that he is a quarterback who's prone to run, rather thin, could get injured. It's all over the league. We're seeing it everywhere. We saw it last night in Kansas City. I mean, we're down to, with still a game to go on the schedule, we're down to these third-string guys. And the league wants to go to 18 games. They seem to do everything they can to protect the quarterback. I mean, roughing the passer now, you sneeze on him, and that's a flag. But it doesn't seem to be doing any good. And, Josh Johnson was fine yesterday. There was no problem with the way he played. But Josh Johnson should not be playing in a game that was supposed to be a big deal in the NFC East, with a chance for the Commanders to get further along and maybe even lock up the division. I mean, who knew when you started the season that this was going to be a meaningless game for both teams and that Washington was going to be playing Josh Johnson at quarterback? There are some staggering stats from this game. The fact that Dallas held the ball for almost 40 minutes, almost 3-1 in time of possession. They had it 38 minutes and 44 seconds, 21 minutes, 16 seconds for Washington. At one point, Dallas had more first downs, that was in the first half, than Washington had plays. That's incredible. As it was, Dallas with 28 first downs, Washington 17. Third downs, Dallas was okay, 8 for 20. But on fourth down, they were 6 for 6. Here's Dan Quinn.
To have 6 out of 6, man, that was impressive to see. So I attribute a lot of that to Dak, to where they're going to go. When you get into those short ones, thought their line did a nice job moving us off, to create, the movements. I think one was a sneak, inside styles of runs. And then on another one, like I said, we had doubled, some other players, and so I think they went one to Tolbert, and but that's hard to do, and they did it for sure. But yeah, the fourth down wins, that was as big a factor in the game as any, because those are possessions that end there. No points, no extension, no time, and so it's a big deal. We had a couple from our end that we were prepared to. Like I said, in the second half, one, we were willing to go up to 4. It was like, 2nd and 1, 3rd and 2, and then a penalty on a false start that went to like 4th and 6 or 7. So, but I thought the 3rd and 4th downs was the difference in the game there. As much as they ran the ball, extending the drives was that way to me.
Yeah, well, look, maybe as stunning as Dallas going for 6 for 6 on 4th down was Washington going 0 for 0. the fact that Quinn didn't dance with the one that brung him last year, which was going for it on fourth down, was kind of surprising. Now, there was one where they were clearly going to go for it on fourth down, and there was a false start. There was a lot of penalties yesterday. Between the two teams, 21 penalties in this game, and that made it even uglier as it played out. But the fact that he pulled in his wings in this game, now maybe it had something to do with who he was playing at quarterback and the injuries that they had across the offensive line. They're already down Sam Cosmi, and they lose Tyler Biotish in fairly early in the game. Might have been in the first half. He goes out of the game, so they're down. They're down offensive linemen, and maybe that's part of the reason that he wasn't willing to go for it on fourth down. But this was not the kind of game that you would have expected in a totally meaningless game. If Dan Quinn is a go-for-it guy, as he was last year, he played it rather conservative yesterday. 1 for 6 on third downs, too. 1 for 6. The fact that they only had six third down opportunities, that's kind of a surprise, too. Now, Josh Johnson, that's a nice Christmas story, right? He's been in the league in and out 10 years since coming in as a seventh-round draft pick in 2008. So that in itself is kind of interesting, and the fact that he was making only his 10th career start. But as you'll hear, this was very meaningful for him, and Quinn understood that, maybe this is the last opportunity for him at the age of 39.
When you get your moments, you want to establish, what you can do and prove it. And I think that's at the core of it, David, like the prove it moments. Those are so important. And so that's why I was bummed for Marcus when he, was injured. He had these, games to go prove it, and we'll see where he goes to next week. But that's what you want when you're in that space, and it's unlikely you get your chance as the third. And so, especially at this stage in his career, knowing, all right, this may be my last, chance to go show I can do this. And so taking care of the ball. We played differently today. I think you probably noticed that in terms of huddling more and going into that. And I thought that was by design to say, for all the players, what are their strengths? All these guys bring a lot of different things to the table and how we can feature them in that way. And so for us, it was going to be important, to execute, take care of the ball. And so with the flip of plays, I think, Dave, that was the hardest space, just not to get enough shots and cracks at it. And but to show that, man, I'm in it, I'm capable of doing this with the full week's prep and showing that, and everybody else leaning in around them to find that, it hurts because it's about the win.
Yeah, well, they didn't get the win, and Josh Johnson, if he never plays again, his record will show that he had 10 NFL starts, and he went 1-9.
It hurts. It hurts, man. Because even though it was a short week, we prepared well. The things was out there that we wanted to get done, and we just had a couple, plays here and there that we left on the field. And me knowing myself, it's gonna sit on me for a couple of days. So it hurts. It hurts. I'm just grateful for everybody in this organization for supporting me this week in a tough situation. It just hurts, man.
How about that? He grabbed his head. I mean, it's tells you something about that, right? I mean, it's a meaningless game. His career, while it's gone on a lot longer than anybody would have expected. I mean, Matt Ryan, who was doing the game yesterday, said that they were in the same draft. So, that tells you how long he's been playing. But it's been a wild career. He's been with 14 different teams, a couple of them twice, like here. I think he was in San Francisco 3 times. And yet, through all of this, in order to play at that level, you have to believe in yourself.
What I learned about myself is what I always believe. I know I can play at a high level, but I also know what comes with playing at a high level. And so I'm not really out here trying to prove nothing anymore. God has put me in this position for a reason, to whatever this game is giving me, to absorb it, and just produce good fruit into the world. And football has blessed me with a lot, not just my family, but my community, every area that I've gone to, every coach I've ever played for. So it's not even about proving myself as a player no more. Either you're gonna believe in me or you're not. But every time I go on the field, I just want to show the gratitude to the man above that I'm grateful to be in this position because, most backup quarterbacks never last this long and never get these opportunities, and I'm grateful for that.
You know what? I wouldn't surprise me for next year if he stays as a quarterback coach. They need a coach with Tavita Pritchard taking the job at Stanford. That might be what's next for him. And look, he's been in every system in the NFL. He has seen it all. So when it comes to comparing, what they're doing with their offensive system versus what's going on in the rest of the league, he knows it. He's played for almost all the other coaches. So that will be a nice, I think, transition for him. And also on the transition story, did you see Austin Eckler yesterday with the Netflix coverage? Whether you watched it on Channel 9 or whether you watched it on Netflix, it was a Netflix telecast. And he was with Matt Ryan and Ian Eagle, who's as good as anybody, maybe the best. And he's great at bringing out the best in his analysts. Austin Eckler was really good yesterday, really good on the Netflix coverage. And if that's the end of his career with the torn Achilles, somebody's going to put him in the booth or put him in the studio because he clearly knows what he's doing. As far as the rest of the telecast, and this is the money game that's played in the NFL, they are reportedly paid or paying, NFL is paid or being paid by Netflix $150 million for 2 football games. So it was a $75 million rights fee for them to televise yesterday's game. And this is the problem when you don't do this on a regular basis. It comes off as very amateur. So to bring in Emmitt Smith for a Zoom call that went on forever and gave you basically nothing was terrible. And I don't know where the hell Clinton Portis was. Looked like he was out in some parking lot somewhere. He added nothing to the telecast. Those were really bad. And the production values weren't good. They had a pregame show, and I watched some of the pregame show for the Vikings game as well. And it seems like in order to audition for a role on that, you have to really shout. And Michael Irvin, who's going to be 60, was just yelling the whole time. I mean, to me, added nothing to that other than, he's a former Dallas Cowboy. Okay, that's kind of cool. You got him out there. And it's almost been since he played that the rivalry meant anything. I think the last meaningful game between Washington and Dallas was the last game of the 2012 season where the winner was going to win the division and the loser was going to be out of the playoffs. And other than that, it's been Dallas has been good. Washington's been terrible. Washington's been pretty good. Dallas has been terrible. There really has not been a rivalry in a long time. And really, there hasn't been a rivalry since the 80s and the early 90s. It got started with George Allen when he got here in 1971. So basically over a 22-year period, it was at its height. But it's been a long time since really Dallas and Washington games were all that meaningful. But, they tried to hype that up because they had nothing else to sell yesterday. It was a meaningless game for both teams. A couple of things to be encouraged about. One is Bill Krosky-Merritt. He wasn't even supposed to play, or he wasn't supposed to be the feature back because Chris Rodriguez had been filling that role, and it was clear what Dan Quinn wanted to do. They wanted to keep the ball on the ground, and maybe the defense could at least contain Dallas, and maybe they find a way with a couple of turnovers, which neither team had, but he thought maybe he could do it that way. And then turns out that Rodriguez is sick, doesn't even suit up yesterday. They give the ball to Bill, and Bill was great. Bill Krosky-Merritt, who had a great start to the season, kind of disappeared in the middle, but has looked pretty good at the end of the year. So that's an encouraging thing for next year, as he had 2 touchdowns, one of them 72 yards on the ground, and finished with only 11 carries for 108 yards, which is kind of stunning that they didn't find a way to give him the ball more often. Then Deebo Samuel had the play of the game where he gets a screen pass and he goes 41 yards and he manages to truck the defensive back on that play and get everybody fired up. But there was no real follow-up on that. They didn't find enough ways to get him the ball. But I wonder about that. Does he come back next year? I would think that there's going to be at least some discussion about bringing him back. You're not going to bring Noah Brown back, and you need another guy on the other side with McLaurin. So I would think that they find a way to bring him back. And then Johnny Newton. Johnny Newton, who was a second-round draft pick last year, he was a little slow coming around because he had foot surgery and looked pretty decent at times, but they brought in Javon Kinlaw, And when you had Deron Payne healthy, which he was not yesterday, you had Kinlaw and Payne in the middle, and Newton was playing kind of a backup role, playing just 34% of the snaps. He played 51 snaps yesterday and was at his best. I mean, if that's who Johnny Newton is, then that's a guy they can count on at a good price next year. Second-round pick, still on a rookie deal. He had 9 tackles, 3 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, and 2 tackles for loss. And a little footnote on that, he was actually drug tested after the game. It's a routine procedure, but yeah, I would drug test him after that for sure. He had a note on his locker, please give us the league mandated drug test. So they did that. So one game to go. We don't know the time of it yet. It's going to be in Philadelphia. I don't know how meaningful it's going to be to the Eagles. They've already clinched the division, but there could be some positioning as to what happens as the playoffs go along. They're not going to be able to get a first-round bye, but they will be in the mix for, at some point, home field, depending on how things shake out. They will get at least one game at home by winning the division. So there's that. And then there's the Detroit Lions, who, I mean, this is one of the more stunning games I have ever seen. This is a game that was literally given away. It was given away, and not that they weren't going to need help. They were going to need the Ravens to win tomorrow night against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay, but they frittered that away in just an unbelievable way. And when you talk about windows in the NFL, you just wonder, and you heard him say it last year. You heard Dan Campbell, the coach of the Lions, say this when they lost to Washington, that these windows don't stay open forever, and it's possible it closed. And it's closing out this year without playoffs, and you just wonder about the long-term future of Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions, and could it be time to move on? As good as he has been, when he needed to be good last year in that playoff game in Detroit, he turned the ball over. When he needed to be good yesterday to keep their season alive, he turned the ball over. 2 interceptions, and they had, as a team, 4 fumbles. I think he had at least one of them, maybe 2. And you just can't do that. So we'll hear what he had to say, and we'll hear what Dan Campbell had to say after just a stunning defeat by the Detroit Lions. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
You know, the NFL has long thrived on that saying that on any given Sunday, one team can beat another team. Any team can beat another team, and that helps to keep people interested in the games. These stats that Max Brosner put together, and if you're unfamiliar with Max Brosner, he was an undrafted free agent with the Minnesota Vikings, what we would call a training camp arm, that you need 4 quarterbacks in training camp just to take care of all the passes, because you got 90 players there, and they want to look at everybody, so you can't have the starting quarterback obviously throw all the passes. So you bring in 4 and you keep 3. So he, because of the attrition that's gone on in Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy, who they wanted to be the starter all year, he's been in and out. He's had sort of a Jaden Daniels season. Brosner has been playing, and when I first saw him come in a couple of weeks ago against Seattle, oh, God, it was an Oigevald, hide your eyes situation. He was horrendous. So now he's been, able to practice and get up to speed on some things, and they can find out what he does well, which I don't really know what that is, but somehow they were able to put together a game plan for this game against the Detroit Lions, who have everything, or had everything, to play for. They were still going to need help, but they needed to win this game yesterday. Minnesota Vikings didn't. They were not going to go to the playoffs this year, and Brosner was starting because, well, they were out of quarterbacks. The numbers that he had in this game, which was won by 13 points. Vikings beat the Detroit Lions, who were picked by some to win the Super Bowl this year. They were certainly supposed to be in the mix. They beat them 23-10 with Brosner. Here he becomes the only quarterback in the Super Bowl era. So we're talking about Super Bowl 60 coming up here next month, or in February. He's the only quarterback in the Super Bowl era to play the entire game and finish with under 70 yards passing and 7+ sacks and yet still win. Yeah, he didn't just finish with under 70 yards passing. His net yards passing were 3. And he had offensive linemen who were out with injuries. They were at -7 yards passing until the last pass that he threw as they tried to keep the clock running, a pass to Justin Jefferson, which went for 10 yards on his final throw of the night. The only teams that have won games with fewer than 10 net yards passing over the last 40 years, the 87 St. Louis Cardinals. Yes, they were still in St. Louis in 87 with 4 yards, and the 2006 Houston Texans -5. They're the first team to win by double digits with less than 5 yards net passing since 1974, 51 years. And the Lions didn't have that great of a pass defense. They were ranked 18th in the league coming in. And, to think that he took 7 sacks, 3 net yards passing, wow. And it was, something of a lopsided win because Jared Goff and the Lions could not hang on to the ball. They come into this game. They played 15 games going into yesterday. They had turned the ball over 8 times in those 15 games. Yesterday, they turned it over 6, 2 of them on interceptions from Goff, who did a 2-minute post-game news conference answering questions like this, including the turnovers.
Yeah, it's something we've been really good at all year, and it sucks that it reared its head today. And, really bad by us in that area.
When you embarked on this season, did you ever envision the possibility that you guys could miss the playoffs?
No.
What are the emotions about that?
About what?
Missing the playoffs.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. We'll reflect on the whole season after next week, but yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, that's about all you can say. It sucks. So that was, 4 questions in 27 seconds. Dan Campbell, a little bit more expansive, but the message again was, yeah, sucks.
Losing is very disappointing. Losing. I hate losing. They hate losing. We do. But look, some of these things that come up, the effort's there. It's just, boy, we are not, we're just a little off here, and it's costing us significantly, and we just, there again, too many turnovers. That's what really got us, man. Just couldn't overcome it.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just the turnovers. When they had the ball, they could not move it. They couldn't do anything with it. They couldn't keep a drive going. And I kind of thought that Drew Brees was out of his mind when Minnesota is up 6 points. And there's still about 8 minutes left in the game. And they're punting deep in their territory. I don't think the punter was quite in the end zone, but he was pretty much backed up against the end zone. And Drew Brees, who has played a lot of football, played 20 years in the NFL. He's not a dope. He says, might not be a bad idea for the Vikings here to take a safety. Now I'm thinking to myself, what? There's like 8 minutes to go. Even if Detroit can't get in the end zone, they can kick 2 field goals and win the game. But he looked at how anemic that their offense was, and he said, well, yeah, even if you give up 2, it's still 4, and if you hold them to a field goal, you're still ahead. And that's how bad Detroit's offense works. So you can talk all you want about the turnovers, and the turnovers certainly played a role in this. Detroit's got to move the ball. Jared Goff with less than 200 yards passing in this game, it's indoors. That's not going to get it done. And I wonder about this. How long a rope does Dan Campbell have? He's done a remarkable job, and I was dead wrong about him. When he came in and talked about biting kneecaps, I said, this guy's a lunkhead. They're going to fire him before the year is over. And he's done a great job with them, and he resuscitated Jared Goff, who was basically sent to Detroit to run out his contract. That was the Matt Stafford deal. That's how the Rams got him, and they unloaded the contract there. And the Lions were willing to eat it as they got better with the draft picks that they got from the Rams. Well, then they look at Goff and they go, well, he's capable of getting us to a Super Bowl. He did with the Rams. But the way things look right now and the sound of Dan Campbell's voice sounds to me like the window may be closing on the Lions.
I do not like being home for the playoffs, and I know our guys don't either. So, and there again, whenever you lose, man, it takes a village, man. Everybody's involved, including myself, So I'm always going to look at myself first, I'm always going to wish I would have given golf more, given those players more. You know, like on a day like today, you come out, you lose, win, doesn't matter, man. If, you know, you feel like you need to improve or can't improve, you want to.
You know who else is home for the playoffs? Me. And if you keep being home for the playoffs, you're going to be with me watching them. I'm not saying that they're going to fire Dan Campbell anytime soon. And the Lions have shown great patience over the years. Matt Millen was horrendous as a general manager. He lasted like 6 years there. So Campbell's going to be back next year. But what looked like a team that was building towards a Super Bowl now isn't going to be in the playoffs. And the Kansas City Chiefs are not going to be in the playoffs. And it looks like a reset there. The question is, you know, is Andy Reid going to come back? And how many of the old stars besides Patrick Mahomes are going to come back? One, Travis Kelce, this could be a ticklish situation. It sounds like he's going to retire. It would make sense that he would retire. But if he wants to keep playing and they don't want him there, which happens, how do they do this gracefully? I mean, it's not like Emmitt Smith. Like Emmitt Smith was closing in on Walter Payton's record in his last year with the Cowboys, so they weren't going to push him out the door. They wanted to, but they couldn't do it. Travis Kelce, nah, I mean, that's not a factor there. And, you know, it seems like the fans are even saying, okay, great, let's see you later. Nice job. But, you know, we're ready to move on here. And they didn't win last night. They didn't need to win, but they didn't win last night against the Denver Broncos, who are just a remarkable story this year. They lost the game 20-13 with, again, a third-string quarterback. The NFL's got a problem here. They can't be finishing the year with all these teams with third-string guys. There's something that they have to address, and just you know, throwing the flag every time a defender gets near a quarterback and calling it roughing the passer clearly isn't working here. And we're getting quarterbacks who are getting hurt on non-contact plays, tearing their Achilles like Indiana Jones did with the Colts. And then you find out here where you got Chris Oladokun, who's playing yesterday. This isn't the NFL that they want. They were banking on, you know, Prime was banking on seeing Patrick Mahomes last night for the Chiefs in a big game, in the division game, as they were closing in on what might be a fourth straight Super Bowl. Didn't happen, as they've been out of the playoffs now for a week or so. And Travis Kelce wound up with 5 catches for 36 yards. Now, they did make kind of a run there at the end to either try to tie or win the game, but he was the final player who was introduced before the game, and they flashed red lights. He came out from a fog with the signature bow and arrow entrance gesture, and the fans roared with delight, perhaps seeing number 87 on the field at Arrowhead Stadium for the last time.
You only get a few of those where you just get to stand there and appreciate 60 to 70,000 Chiefs fans screaming for you. So I always embrace that moment, man. It's fun, and hopefully I got everybody fired up for it.
Extra emotions to this game?
Yeah, it's a Christmas game, baby. It's a whole lot of emotion, man. Have everybody in the world watching you. You get to go out there with a young guy like Chris Oladokun. Primetime television, excited for him, excited for the guys around us. A lot of young guys getting opportunities to, you know, taste what this NFL life on a big stage feels like. And I just wanted to get out there and get a win for those guys, man.
That's what I was asking. But,
of course.
Secondarily, you've been asked enough by us, and I know you were asked by Tony yesterday about the possibility of your final home game. Did that ever cross your mind throughout the game?
No, the only time it ever crossed my mind is I was driving in the other day and I saw how much the Powerball was. And I was like, man, if I could just win that, I wouldn't have to work another day in my life.
That's what's keeping you here?
Oh, no, man. Honestly, I've been just focused on trying to win football games, man. I'll let that be a decision that I make with my family, friends, the Chiefs organization, when the time comes.
I got news for you, Travis. You won Powerball. You're marrying Taylor Swift. Yeah, she counts her monies by the B's, as in billions. And $1.7 billion doesn't make her blink. Now, I imagine there'll be a pretty well drawn up prenup in that marriage. But let's not pretend here that $1.7 billion in the Powerball is going to be life-changing for you. Because, by the way, when they take out the taxes, what are you talking about, $700 million? And $700 million is life-changing for the rest of us, maybe not necessarily for you. So let's let's stop with that. 97 games played at Arrowhead over the course of his 13-year career, caught 645 passes there, including the playoffs, third most by any player at a single building. Jerry Rice and Larry Fitzgerald held the records. Larry Fitzgerald did it in Arizona, although I guess that stadium's been around that long. Wow, I'm thinking it might go back to Sun Devil Stadium, but no, I guess it was all in the new place. And then Jerry Rice, of course, with the 49ers catching all those passes. He's got a couple of milestones that he can reach next week. Needs 10 yards receiving to get to 13,000 for his career. And by catching a pass in his 191st consecutive game next weekend, that will keep alive the longest streak in NFL history. I forget who holds that. Art Monk held it at one time. But anyway, the interesting thing about what will likely be his last game is, guess where it is? Yeah, Las Vegas. I mean, if ever a player should have a fitting end in a particular city, it's Las Vegas, because he's going to step right off the NFL stage and, be Mr. Taylor Swift. But he's also got a lot of his other stuff going on, including the podcast that he does with his brother, which is something like $100 million deal. I mean, crazy. And then he's done some acting. He was actually pretty good when he did Saturday Night Live a couple of years ago. So I think he's going to make a transition to movies, and we'll see how successful he is. Howie Long tried that, wasn't very good. Terry Bradshaw was in a few movies. Joe Theismann, I think, was in Smokey and the Bandit, had a kind of a cameo. He may be able to do like a Fred Dreyer. I don't think that's out of the question, that you could make that kind of transition. Bernie Casey, not a player of his level, not a Hall of Fame player, but also transitioned to acting. So I think that's all in the cards for him. The television numbers are interesting for the college football playoff, and they got to figure this out as well. Now, they're going to be okay now for the next round because they play one game on New Year's Eve, and then they play 3 on New Year's Day. That's Thursday. The NFL isn't playing at that time because that's the last week of the season. You can't give a team an advantage to play on a Thursday heading into the playoffs. So no NFL on Thursday next week, no NFL on Wednesday night on New Year's Eve when they play the next round of these college football playoffs. But this is what they're up against the first weekend. This past weekend's first round averaged 9.9 million viewers on ABC, ESPN, TNT, and TBS and True TV. That's a 7% drop from last year. Now, the final game was a blowout, James Madison, Oregon, on TNT, TBS, and True TV. That was not on ABC and ESPN. A lot of people wouldn't know where to find the game. Most importantly, the Bears had a great game with the Green Bay Packers. That was a tremendous game on Fox. It averaged 21.3 million viewers, while they got 4.4 million for the Oregon blowout of JMU, 51-34. Last year, the Ohio State-Tennessee game on ABC in the same time slot averaged 14.3 million, but it didn't have an NFL game to go up against. And the most watched of the playoff games this year, no surprise, standalone game on Friday night, where Alabama came from behind to beat Oklahoma. 2 blue blood college football teams, standalone, Friday night, nothing else on, 14.9 million viewers. And whatever the college football is trying to do in looking at what college basketball does, it's apples and oranges, because you could put the best NBA game on. You could put the most intriguing players, Victor Wembanyama, LeBron James, whoever you want to put on, you could put it up against NCAA games. Doesn't matter. It's regular season basketball. Nobody cares. The players don't care. We'll get to what J.J. Redick said about that in just a couple of minutes. But the competition is a lot different. In the NFL, you can put up a stinky NFL product. It's going to crush college football and even meaningful playoff games. And yes, this was a little bit different with the Bears and the Packers playing an important game in the NFC North. And the fact that it was a great game that went to overtime and you get 21 million people watching it. But even if it was like what the Commanders and the Cowboys put up yesterday, and they put that in that time slot, that would have outdrawn the college football playoff. So if they're looking at this, and everything has to be looked at as a television product now, because that's where the money comes from, they got to figure something out, because this is not. And then, even when they're putting games like at noon on Saturday is a big time in college football. That's why you have the big noon kickoff on Fox. But it's also kind of appetizer for NFL. That's what people were interested in watching last Saturday, the NFL, not college football, and they have to figure it out. More on the Commanders' loss yesterday, plus Ravens preview at 10:30. What the hell is going on with Lamar Jackson? It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. He stays up late playing video games. It forces the Ravens to hold their training camp practices in the brutal heat of the afternoon. And there's a rift between head coach John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. This reported by Mike Preston of the Baltimore Sun. This isn't just some guy in his basement throwing around internet rumors. Mike Preston has covered the Ravens since they came from Cleveland almost 30 years ago. There's something going on with the Ravens, and there's something going on that they don't want to be happening with a guy who is their franchise quarterback. And perhaps Baltimore is not big enough anymore for Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh. We will see. They are on life support as far as the playoffs go, and they need a win tomorrow night just to have hopes that they go into Sunday with a chance. But those could be extinguished if in fact the Steelers take care of business and beat the Cleveland Browns. It's all part of what's going on with them, and then we'll take a deeper dive into that with Ravens preview, which we do at 10:30, and we'll have the game for you here tomorrow night. By the way, that game is going to be on Peacock only. So if you don't have Peacock and you really want to keep up with what the Ravens are doing, we'll have the radio game, as we always have here on ESPN 630. All right, what do we do now about a Commanders season that was the polar opposite of last year? Like, last year at this time, they're closing in on the playoffs. They had already clinched, as a matter of fact. I think it was game 16 last year, right, where they beat on Sunday night the Atlanta Falcons. So they didn't have to win the final game of the year, where they played at Dallas. And there was something. Maybe they just had to play it absolutely safe, but there was a hit that Jaden Daniels took that they weren't too happy about. So he didn't play the second half. Marcus Mariota did. He threw a late touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin. They won anyway, and they go into the playoffs with a 12-5 record. I'm not even going to get 5 wins this year unless they pull an upset at Philadelphia. So last year they go in 5-12, 12-5, excuse me, and then beat on a last-minute kick. They win at Tampa. Then they handily beat the Detroit Lions, and then they go to Philadelphia, and the season comes to an end. Well, there was a feeling like they had cleared a hurdle, and now you're going into the 2025 season where, okay, the schedule gets tougher. The 5 games where they won on the last possession, the pendulum could swing the other way. Maybe there'll be a few more injuries where they stayed very, very healthy last year. I mean, you had 20 starts out of Jaden Daniels. Terry McLaurin didn't miss a game. The defense was relatively healthy. They didn't have these kind of problems. This year, it all collapsed. The pendulum didn't swing. It swung back and smashed them in the face. And so what do you make of this team over the last 2 years? Are they as bad as they look this year? I don't know. Are they as good as they looked last year? No, they did not. So now you're going to move ahead, and really, I think if you look realistically at where this team is, you probably have to throw out the last 2 years, not just this year, but last year, because they weren't that good. They weren't as good as their record was. I mean, I know what Bill Parcells says, you are what your record says you are, and they were last year, but they're not. They're not that good of a team right now, and the question that will always stand out with as Adam Peters was introduced and David Aldridge asked him what he thought of the current roster. This was January of 2024, and he paused for a good 3.5 seconds before coming up with, well, there are parts there. And as you saw, he just totally ripped it apart, brought in a bunch of free agents that were stopgap guys. Like they could play until the draft picks came around. Well, the draft picks haven't been as fruitful as they thought. They went for it, and Marshawn Lattimore and trading away draft picks for him, he turned out to be a dry hole. That was a disaster. And although you do want to protect Jaden Daniels and you want to make sure you have a top left tackle, and they did with Laramie Tunsil this year, he still couldn't stay healthy. So I think you almost have to look at next year. They won't use this because Dan Quinn, when he was introduced, was asked about rebuilding off a 4-13 team. And he said, I don't want to use that word. I want to use recalibration. And they recalibrated to the NFC Championship game. Now what do you call it? You can call it whatever you want. You're probably going to have to rebuild. What do you have left of parts that you can build around? If you ask me in late October or November, I would say Bill Krosky-Barrett was a good shtick at the beginning of the year. That was a cool thing. Guy who's a 7th-round pick, didn't play at all last year at Arizona because of eligibility, and he comes out and he has a great start to the season. They're 3-2. They're rolling. Middle of the season, he disappears. But lately, he's been good, and he was great yesterday. He had over 100 yards on only 11 carries, and he had 2 touchdowns. One of them a 72-yarder.
I saw D-Light, and I was like, this my chance to show, like, when it's open field, I can take it the distance, and it worked out perfect.
Yeah, it did work out pretty well for him. As for what Dan Quinn saw from a back that he didn't even expect to be the feature back yesterday. Chris Rodriguez was supposed to get the carries, but he turned up sick yesterday morning, so they went to Bill, and as Dan Quinn says, he's generally ready for the opportunity.
The thing that comes to mind that I'm impressed by is, like, coming in, I know this was a short week, but some of the running backs told me this earlier, like, he likes to meet early and get ahead. So when we got to, how we're doing blitz pickup meetings, he was the one answering. Like, he's so urgent about wanting to deliver for the guys, Mickey. So I think that's where I'm seeing the growth on the protection side, taking what's there in the running game. Early on in the season, it was kind of make a big play where it was 2nd and 1, can I get the first down? So finding the end zone, that's a big deal in the long run. Getting outside and finishing, those are some of the things. But I've seen him grow a lot in the knowledge of the game plan. Those were big.
Yeah, and I give them credit for this. They were behind 21-3 yesterday with a third-string quarterback with a Dallas team that was completely controlling the football. At one point, Dallas had more first downs than Washington had plays. I think it was 18-17 in the first half. But from 21-3, they got back in the game, and it turned out to be a one-score game. And Josh Johnson, who may, depending on Marcus Mariota's availability for the final game against Philadelphia, may have seen his last snap in the NFL, his 10th start in a career that began in 2008. 2008 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And by hook or by crook, he keeps coming back to the NFL, 14 different teams, San Francisco 3 times, twice here. The one win that he's had as a starter was here, but that was back in 2018. It's just remarkable that he's managed to stick around. And I would say this. I don't think he would say this unless this were the case, having been with all the different organizations that he's been with. But here's what he says about playing in Washington.
When you get your moments, you want to...
Nope, that's not him. That was Dan Quinn. This is what Josh Johnson says.
What I learned about myself is what I always believe. Like, I know I can play at a high level. But I also know what comes with playing at a high level. And so I'm not really out here trying to prove nothing anymore. Like, God has put me in this position for a reason to, whatever this game is giving me, to absorb it and just produce good fruit into the world. And like, football has blessed me with a lot, not just my family, but my community, every area that I've gone to, every coach I've ever played for. So it's not even about proving myself as a player no more. Like, either you're going to believe in me or you're not. But every time I go on the field, I just want to show the gratitude to the man above that I'm grateful to be in this position because, most backup quarterbacks never last this long and never get these opportunities, and I'm grateful for that.
That's for sure. That's Johnson on himself. This is Johnson on the team.
Like, you would never tell our record. You could never tell our record, and I think you guys feel that when y'all come in our locker room. And that's a credit to DQ, Adam, Cliff, Coach Witt, all our leaders, Jaden, Marcus, Bobby. So many different guys that, take pride in what they do. And at the end of the day, we got a job to do. And for some of us, you know, this might be the only opportunity we get. And so you can't take these things for granted, and you got to go out there and try to make the best of it.
As I said in the last hour, I would not be surprised to see Josh Johnson stay here next year as the quarterback's coach. Tavita Pritchard, now the head coach at Stanford, I would think that he'd be in line, not necessarily to replace him, but to be in the mix in working with the quarterbacks, because he's seen it all. He's seen everything. And when the story of his career is written, I think it would make a pretty good book. If people read books anymore, but I would be interested in hearing about all the stories, about all the stops, the different leagues he went to, some of whom collapsed, some never got off the ground. He was in the XFL in that first season back in 2020 before the pandemic hit and had to shut down. I mean, talk about resilience. That's a story of resilience, Josh Johnson, and to have played really well yesterday. I mean, he was not necessarily the problem yesterday. He wasn't fabulous, and he missed a couple of things, but 15 of 23 for 198 yards, no turnovers. He took only 2 sacks. You know, Dak Prescott, as good as he was, throwing for 307 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did take 6 sacks. And, you know, here's something you worry about at this time of year, as they may be worried about with Tyler Biadasz. He may have torn his ACL yesterday. We won't find anything out about this until Monday. But if he tore his ACL, then you're looking at a rehab, which, if, you know, Sam Cosmi is a guide, you're looking at not getting him back maybe 5-6 games into next season. That's in play as well. And if you're throwing, you know, in a meaningless game, you're watching Dak Prescott play like that and get himself in a position to take 6 sacks. What if he suffers a serious injury that's going to delay his return next year? I think all of that it would be in play for him. All right, I watched this a few days ago and talked about it the other day, but I thought it'd be worthwhile to discuss this for your weekend viewing. Now that you won't have the Commanders to watch, and we don't really, we have these listings of bowls. I read something about this. Why do they have all these bowls? The reason they have all these bowls is, it appears, even though, you know, they don't really interest you or me, they interest enough people that people are watching. As many as twice as many people are watching some of these nonsensical bowls as watching 2 top college basketball teams play. Now, it's more and more difficult to watch college basketball now because you don't know any of the players. The Maryland team is totally turned over around the country. There are no more identifiable players. You don't see guys staying 3 and 4 years anymore. Even when you had like the one and dones, you knew enough about them going in, and you know you wouldn't see an entire team turn over as like has happened here at Maryland and other places. So I guess that has something to do with it. That's why they have these bowl games. But anyway, if you want to watch the John Elway documentary, which is on Netflix, I think it's pretty good. I would say this, and this I think started with The Last Dance, is that these documentaries that are kind of produced, I think Elway had a hand in producing it. You're not going to get any negative stuff. They really gloss over the way that he stiffed Baltimore. Ernie Accorsi, the general manager of the Colts, ignored Elway and his dad saying, "Don't draft me. We're not going to play in Baltimore." He said they would figure it out. As it turned out, they didn't want to play for Frank Kush. So they used leverage of Elway playing baseball. He went with George Steinbrenner in the Yankees and played like single A and was okay. He was never going to be a major league player. I mean, at that point, he was 22 years old, and he played college baseball. He wasn't going to spend 3 and 4 years in the minors riding the buses to get to the top level where he knew he was going to be a great NFL quarterback. That eventually would have happened. But he got Bob Irsay, the drunk owner of the Colts, to blink, traded him for a bag of donuts to the Denver Broncos, and the rest is history. Here's the trailer for Elway that's now running on Netflix.
John Elway, the most gifted quarterback to ever play in the National Football League.
I can still remember feeling that responsibility and the expectation.
This is his 3rd loss in a Super Bowl.
I had to sacrifice everything to be the best.
Everything changed for Colorado in 1983.
Been the most spoken about name in American sports.
John Elway.
John Elway.
First time I saw him practice, I'm going, man, this guy's a freak.
He is going to be one of the greats of all time, I think.
He got the nickname the Duke of Denver. The Duke of Denver. Duke of Denver.
He's got the ball, touchdown.
He was shy, sweet. He's not neat and pigeon-toed. And all of a sudden, I'm dating this superstar.
His first year, I'd never seen anybody get beat around like he did. Everyone was expecting John was going to take us to the top right away.
With Dan's offense, it was different than I was used to.
Bam, bam, bam.
My head was spinning.
Was he overblown by the media?
Part of the growing pains of coming into the NFL.
People have no idea how hard this guy worked to be who he was.
For me, looking over the last 50 years, my whole life, winning was the most important thing. I think that was at the sacrifice to my family.
Depending on whether he won or lost, there was definitely a mood shift.
I used to be pretty intimidated with him.
This comes with the territory.
My parents' marriage was crumbling.
You really start to pick up on the gravity of the situation.
I got death threats.
All the focus and the media and everything was on John.
He helped a city transform itself. Well, let's be real. He was going to have to win a Super Bowl to be coronated. John took it personally. He had one goal.
The frustration level grew.
Before he's ever going to be considered a great quarterback, he has to win one of these things.
Those are the sacrifices that athletes make to be great.
Touchdown, Denver!
Greatness is more than just a performance on the field.
And my dad always said, you can't take the easy way out. So this is the moment.
Yeah, that's a big part of the Elway story is that he goes to 3 Super Bowls in a period of time between 1987 and 1990, 4 years, 3 Super Bowls. He gets blown out in all of them, including the one against Doug Williams and the Redskins, 42-10, where Williams hung 35 on the Broncos in the second quarter with 4 touchdown passes. And then the final one in that first go-round against San Francisco, which is a great team. They lost 55-10. And as his career was going on, it was, would he get back there, A? And B, if he got back there, would he get clobbered again? Would he win a Super Bowl? Now, he did win 2. You talk about a great exit, back-to-back Super Bowl championships and MVP in the last one, but it was a different Bronco team that he was quarterbacking then, and it was because it wasn't as dependent on Elway. They had a running game in Terrell Davis, who almost didn't stay there, didn't stay with the Broncos. Remember, he was not a highly drafted player out of Georgia. He had actually started his career at Long Beach State with George Allen. They folded the program. He winds up at Georgia, 5th or 6th round pick by the Broncos. And this is a story that Elway told on the Rich Eisen show last week about how Terrell Davis almost didn't even stay with the team as a rookie.
We were in preseason, and we're over in Japan. We were playing a preseason game over in Japan, and Terrell was saying, you know what, he was like the 7th one on the depth chart and wasn't getting a lot of reps. And so he was like, man, I'm done with this. He went downstairs, tried to check out because he was going to go home to say he didn't want to play football. Mm-hmm. And thank God they couldn't understand him in Japan. They couldn't understand what he wanted. So he had to go back up to his room. The next day he plays in the game in the special teams. That's right. Played a little bit running back, but in the special teams he ran down, made a big hit, and then guys started getting hurt. Terrell moved up the line fast, and then Mike went to him the first game and said, "Terrell, you're going to be our starter." And then that's when things really started to move forward for us.
So are you saying Terrell Davis might not be in the Hall of Fame and you might not have 2 rings if he was fluent in Japanese? Is that what you just told me, John?
Oh, yeah. We talk about that all the time. We talk about that all the time. It's like, thank God they could not understand you, and you hung in there and came back and played the game the next night. So, but yeah, that's a story that's one of those forks in the road. Yep. That we got lucky on the fork in the road, and positive circumstances helped us out quite a bit there.
Yeah, if they don't get Terrell Davis, they don't win the Super Bowl. And they go against the Green Bay Packers, who had won the year before. That was the team that had beaten New England They looked like they were ready to repeat. They were good, and Brett Favre was the best player in the league. I think the spread may have been like 9 points, something like that. And as it turned out, the Broncos won the game, and they won it not necessarily with Elway's arm, because he only threw for 104 yards in that game. He won it with his legs, with the famous helicopter spin, where he got hit and his body twirled around and he landed for a first down. This was Elway describing what happened on that play with Rich Eisen.
I still get emotional every time I see that, because I remember, and the funny thing about that play was I didn't like to play, and Mike knew I didn't like to play, and we talked about it, and he goes, I said, what if we don't get this defense? He says, John, 100% of the time this whole year against this formation, we get this play and we get this coverage. And so sure enough, we walk out and it's not that coverage. And I tried to get outside and, tried to find somebody open and look for the first down. And, I was able to turn it upfield. And I said, well, I'm going to put my big old 6-inch vertical on him and try to go over the top. But the thing that really sticks out to me is I remember looking at our sideline when I got up, because I'm full of adrenaline as well. And I looked at our sideline, and our sideline was going nuts. And so that feeling at that time, I still, to this day, and even when I watch the Netflix show, it's like it still grabs me, because we'd worked so hard. It was my 15th year. We'd had those 3 disappointing losses, and in Colorado, and the Bronco fans so dearly wanted a Super Bowl victory, and so it is very emotional still when I watch that play.
And then, just while we're in the emotions right now and the feels, John, what were you stunned, surprised, taken aback when Pat Bowlen said this one's for John and handed you the trophy, John?
I was, because I was felt a little bit, because I threw for 140 yards that game, but I think that learning, having lost 3 Super Bowls, and knowing how important it is to have a great football team, that to be able to win a Super Bowl, you have to have a great football team. But for him to kind of put me out there in front, it was obviously very, very nice and a great feeling. But I was also sitting there thinking, well, thank God I had those other 52 guys, because we couldn't have done it without each other.
It's funny. About a month after that Super Bowl, the ESPYs were taking place in New York. It's a lot different in those days than it is now. Now it's in Los Angeles, and they do it around the baseball All-Star break. In those days, they did it around the NBA All-Star break. So we're in New York. I'm there with Tony Kornheiser, who's doing his show from there, and they asked me to do the backstage interviews. Like, they would bring back the people who were up for awards, or celebrities who were there, or whatever it was. So they bring John Elway back. And Elway had said going into that Super Bowl that if he didn't win one, his career would still be complete. Like, he had that incredible disappointment of those 3 Super Bowl losses in 4 years, all of them blowouts. They had teams which were capable of getting there in the past. A year they lost to Jacksonville in a home playoff game. Jacksonville, a second-year expansion team. And I said to him, well, you had said going into this Super Bowl that if you didn't win a Super Bowl, your career would be complete. And he said, I lied about that, and I would have kept playing until I was 60, until I won one. So that was a great answer. After his career was over with the back-to-back Super Bowls, he becomes the general manager and has become the only person to win a Super Bowl as a player and another one as a general manager. And he did it by getting Peyton Manning and at the time when his career was in question after the Indianapolis had cut him. They didn't know whether he was going to play again after the neck surgery, but he was in demand, and Elway managed to land him, and he told Rich Eisen how.
There was 4 other teams involved, and I just wanted to show him what Denver was all about, what the Broncos were all about, show him the organization. And I think that, John Fox was our head coach, who was, a very, great guy, great coach, and won a lot of football games, with Mike McCoy being the offensive coordinator. So I think it was to show him what we're all about, because we knew, it wasn't going to be a hard sell for us. It was going to lay out what we had, what we could provide for him. allow him to come in here and really be involved in what what he had done in the previous 14 years or 13 years in the league, and to be able to adapt the offense to what he was comfortable doing. And so we were able to do that. And I think, Peyton was, he's a guy that is going to make his own decisions. And it was, I didn't want to put a hard sell on him. I just wanted to have him feel welcome, and also just show every good thing that we had about the Denver Broncos. Obviously, I'm biased, having played for him for 16 years and been in the front office with him. And so I just want to show him what Denver was all about, what the Broncos were all about, what the coaching staff and everything was all about, and let him make that decision and try not to pressure him. We didn't want to pressure him at all, and I think that was the key thing.
When did you find out that it was done?
He actually called me. I got a call from him, and I was sitting at my desk, and he said, "Well, I'm making some phone calls, letting everybody know what I'm going to do." And I was wondering if I was the first call, the second call, or the third call.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was the third call, and he told me that he was going to come and join us here in Denver, which was obviously. And John Fox was sitting right next to me, and we both gave the touchdown sign when he said that. And we're thrilled to have him, and obviously, finished his career on a great note, on a tremendous career that he did have.
So he called and offered regrets before he called and confirmed, is what you're saying?
He did, and so that's where I was wondering. As soon as he said that, I was wondering, which number call are we? And so, and I think the one team that I was really concerned about was Tennessee, just because of his history in Tennessee and having been down there. But I think that Peyton realized, the best fit was here for him in Denver, and it turned out that way.
All right, let's hit the Wayback Machine now for real. I want your favorite Pat Bowlen story, John Elway. Give me your
Pat Bowlen.
Yes.
I wish I had a favorite one. There's so many of them, but I think the one thing about Pat Bowlen that I love so much is that he was such a player's owner. I mean, he was at practice every single day. He was a great competitor, competing in the Ironman, and he'd work out at 3:00 every afternoon on the button and never missed a day. But just, he was a great competitor and really cared about his players. The great thing with Pat was because he had a place in Hawaii. And so every time we'd go over to the Pro Bowl, I think, Pat would host us over there and take us to his house and take us out to dinner. And he really allowed us to get to know him and the type of guy that he was, which, obviously was a guy that wanted to win, and every resource he could throw at winning, he would throw at winning.
So how difficult was it for him to not win the big one for as long as you guys were chasing it together, John?
Well, I think it was probably just as hard on him as it was on me, because I think that's what he wanted is, he wanted that world championship. And, especially in the 80s when we were there 3 times and, didn't play well in those Super Bowls and ended up losing. That was 8 years before we had a chance to go back. So, he was working as hard as anybody trying to get us back, get us back to the Super Bowl and get the right people in, on the coaching staff as well as the players. And it was just a great guy and a guy that, is dearly missed every day.
That's John Elway on the documentary about his life, appropriately named Elway, which is now running on Netflix. All right, no Commanders this weekend. That's probably a good thing. But we do have other football and another game to get ready for, the last game of the season, which will be a week from Sunday. I guess we won't find out about injuries and whether Marcus Mariota will be able to go until Dan Quinn meets again with the media on Monday. But enjoy the weekend, the Commanderless weekend. Bram is coming up next, and I'll see you back here on Monday morning at 9 a.m.